I want to welcome you back to another YouTube video, you beautiful hosers, and today, obviously, it's a rather strange one, so let's just jump right into it. Now, the weird thing is about this video is I originally didn't have a title, so I think I might actually just run a couple of them by you, because I know this is, kind of weird video for me to actually do, because I'm just wondering your guys' thoughts and opinions on this. Now, as we know, throughout the years I've been talking about my life and that sort of thing, I was actually wondering if you guys were actually interested in that sort of stuff, because I got a lot of stories to tell. I just don't know if you guys would actually be interested in that sort of stuff. Like, I talked about my childhood, my parents, that sort of thing, and how I got to where I am now. But I've never exactly gone into the real gritty stuff of the good things that happened in my life. I more or less covered the bad, like the almost getting arrested portion, which was actually a funny moment for me now that I think about it and look at my past. But right then and there, it was kind of one of the moments where I'm like, what's going on? Because I know there's a lot of stuff in my life that's actually currently happening. I want to talk a little bit about that stuff, but it's kind of weird to actually want to bring out the words to actually talk about that stuff, because some of it can actually be a little on the weird side, even though I am kind of a strange person. Uh, there's a lot of other things that have happened in my life. Like I said, there's a lot of good that's happened in my life, but there's also a lot of bad. I've already covered the bad. I wanted to know if you guys would be interested into looking into the good things of my life, rather than just going back to my older videos, watching the bad things of my life, where I am now, why I'm here, that sort of thing, because it's kind of a heavy story to try and fit all into one video, and then a lot of it I actually skipped a lot of parts of, because there's a lot of strange things that have happened in my childhood that aren't exactly good things, because I was pretty much the average teenager at one point in time. Now I like to think I'm a little more mature than that, but overall it's just one of the things that happens when life hits you. So I guess what I'm trying to say is today is actually story time, because I'm actually going to talk about one of the most valuable lessons that I've ever learned in my life. And I know it's kind of strange to actually say that, but it's actually true. It's one of the best lessons that I've actually learned through, I believe it was Greco-Roman wrestling. I know it wasn't freestyle wrestling. It definitely had to have been Greco-Roman. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm 90% sure that's what it was that I was doing in elementary and high school. I covered a little bit about it, but I want to actually get into the lesson that I learned from wrestling itself. So, now that I've lightened up the room, hopefully we actually get a good camera angle that's not so fuzzy for 1080p, because I know a lot of you guys are actually using cell phones and my quality seems bad because of that, because your phones aren't as good. So I want to actually try and make it so that it's a little less choppy for you guys, but overall it's just one of those weird things that happened. Sorry I went off topic here. I'm just about to jump into it just after I edit this last part out, so just bear with me, because you know editing takes some time. And generally I'm just recording less, listening to what I said, and then relaying it, and then I'm going, man, there's some things that I should have changed, just like my life, obviously. And then there's some things that I should keep in there, even though I think I shouldn't, but overall it's just one of the things about what can you do, it's in there, it's online now, who really gives a care bear. But anyways, the most valuable lesson that I had ever learned during wrestling wasn't so much as the looking back aspect, because mainly everybody has to look back for that sort of scenario. I'm not talking about like literally looking back and like snapping your neck sort of thing. What I'm talking about is looking at your past mistakes and then going, okay, now how can I improve? That's what I was sort of trying to get at, but it's not necessarily that. I'm talking about more of the getting knocked down and getting right back up on the horse, so to speak, aspect of it. Because I know there's a lot of different things that people will tell you, like, you should never look back. That's not necessarily true. You can never find what went wrong if you don't look back and go, okay, I could have done this to improve. that sort of thing. But when you're knocked down and you're getting back up, that's a completely different story. And I'm going to get into exactly what happened that made me learn that lesson. Because I know I paid for it later that night because they ended up taking me to a dance. And for me, I think the most enjoyable thing was our one of our teammates almost got kicked out of the high school that we were at, mainly because he jumped on the bleachers and he took his shirt off and he started going like this repeatedly, and then people started to join in with him. Those guys didn't take their shirts off, but he was asked to either get down or leave. He chose the option of putting his shirt back on because they caught him in the middle of him taking it off, so he put it fully back on and then he went downstairs. I think they had like 3 floors in that school, if I remember, in Prince Rupert. Not 100% sure, because I know there was the main floor and there was a downstairs. I think the school probably would have been big enough for an upstairs too, so it might have been 3 floors. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But anyways, I was in grade 7 at the time. It was either December or January. I'm pretty sure it was January because there was still snow on the ground, so I know it was winter. And January's kind of like more or less the slower months for wrestling tournaments and stuff. And I was actually at the BC Winter Games. I believe, and don't quote me on this, I believe I was one of the youngest, if not the youngest, that was actually invited there. I was definitely the youngest Chetwynd kid to be invited there, and I was wrestling guys that were pretty much 3 to 4 times my size. You see me now, but I used to actually be a lot bigger and a lot chunkier and a lot heftier than I am now, believe it or not. I was wrestling at the 110 kilogram class, and if you don't know how heavy that is, that's getting into the 200 pounds sort of area, because I think it's like 2.2 per pound going into kilograms. So that's like 220 pounds. Obviously, I weigh more than that now, but I've actually slimmed down from what I once was. I used to eat way too much. I'll openly admit that, because back at that tournament, I think I had like one entire bag full of food. I didn't share it with anybody. I had like a sandwich that was like, I think it was about this long. It pretty much had everything but the kitchen sink on it. And then I had like cereal and a bunch of other stuff that I probably shouldn't have had with me, just like the Williams Lake tournament. Man, that was bad. I couldn't even carry my bag that day. That's back when I was definitely weaker and I wasn't able to push myself up onto anything. And man, I really make myself sound fat. But anyways, we were at this wrestling tournament, and I believe this was the last match that I had of the round robin, and I was up against this guy named Garrett. I believe at the time he was actually grade 12. I just know the guy was a friggin' monster compared to me, because I wasn't exactly 6 feet tall yet. I was, I think, 5'8", 5'9" at that point in time. I'm over 6 feet tall now, so just so you get a image reference, this guy had a good foot to 2 feet on me, as well as he also had the muscle advantage, so I don't think you would ever see a little elementary schooler trying to pick up somebody that's like 200 some pounds, because I was wrestling in the heavyweight weight class, which was the heaviest at that point in time, before they switched the rules and pretty much outed my class, so I had no actual competition, so I was forced to quit. But anyways, this Bradley guy was just huge. I went from wrestling him to actually one point where he picked me up by my legs. And I remember it perfectly because my head went way past his shoulders, and he didn't know at the time that I was actually an elementary school kid. So he just picked me up. He took me up like this. This is literally how his arms were. And then just let go. And I was to the point where I was like, he's doing this. He's already fully committed to this. He knows what he's doing, but he doesn't know how old the person is. I'm thinking to myself at the moment of impact, God, I hope this doesn't knock the wind out of me, because this is really gonna suck. I just hit the mat extremely hard, and these mats were like about this thick. That's not a whole lot of padding, especially from the height that I was. I was a good 4 to 5 feet in the air, and just to have him just drop me land on my back, and I just felt my head bounce off the ground. And believe it or not, that was actually the very first wrestling match that I never cried. I was a crybaby about losing, and way before then. I cry after losing a basketball game, a volleyball game, football, baseball, losing a wrestling match. I was a big crybaby then. But that was the first match that I never cried. And I remember something ticked in my head after I had hit the mat. And I was like, you know what? I have to get up. I have to finish what I started, sort of deal. So I literally got up. They were all looking at me, and the entire crowd was like, you know, like one of those tracks that they use in movies where everybody's just like gassed and doesn't know what to expect. Well, all these teenagers that were part of the curling team seen this happen, and every last one of them was like this. I don't think we had any male curlers. We might have, but all the Chetwynd kids were there regardless. And they just seen me hit the mat, and instantly my first reaction was, do I want to lay here or do I want to get back up again? I chose the option of getting back up. I ended up finishing the match. I actually lost by points. I wasn't actually pinned. I didn't get pinned officially until high school. And the reason for that, like I said, was mainly the portion of getting up and then doing it all over again. Now I realize I've already edited the piss out of this, and it's well over 10 minutes, and I'm very well aware of this. And obviously, if you're watching this, this is Saturday's video, to be honest, and I've already been at work. So by the time you're seeing this, we're already past that stage. But the main lesson there is whenever somebody knocks you down, you need to get back up. You can't just think about, how could I let this happen to me? That sort of thing. You actually got to focus on the moment. Is it more important for me to rise to the occasion or actually just stay on the ground and admit defeat? In that portion of it, I didn't want to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I chose to get up. This little freaking chunky kid from Chetwynd, this little chunky grade 7er, gets back up, and he's just staring down this guy. And I wasn't phased at the point in time. The ref's like, are you alright? And I was like, yeah, I'm perfectly fine. The only thing that I actually had was whiplash, and I had the wind knocked out of me. So at that point in time, I didn't know what was happening. Adrenaline was just pumping through my veins. And I ended up facing this Garrett guy more than just that once. Oh, wait, no, this actually took place in December, because in January I actually faced him again. But that's also part of the story, to be honest. It all revolves around the same guy. But at that moment in time, after I got up, they asked if I was okay, and I went, yeah, I'm perfectly fine. Like, if you gave me too much sugar, that wouldn't, like, do anything to me, but adrenaline just had me back up, get up there. I ended up finishing. I think I only had about 4 points to his 11 or something like that. But overall, it was just a great experience to actually be able to go to the BC games. I believe it was. I don't think it was the Canada Winter Games. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong about that. But I know it definitely was the BC Winter Games. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting, the amount of people that you can actually meet that you never thought you would have actually met in your life if you hadn't done certain things like that. Like, we went to the school afterwards. Like I said, the dance, Nathan almost got kicked out. We actually talked to a lot of people that shared the same interests as us. And a lot of people actually congratulated me after my match with Garrett, saying, we don't understand how you were able to get up again. Because obviously when they seen me hit the ground, they thought I was pretty much just done right there. But long and behold, I wasn't dead, so I guess I lived through it somehow. And then Garrett, a month later at the Kelly Road tournament, he actually started scoring points on himself. I have no idea why, but I almost actually won a round against him, which was the first ever, and I would have been the first person to ever do that because he was on top of everybody. Gold after gold after gold medal after gold medal. And I actually gave him a run for his money that time. And I didn't realize it at the time, but everybody's like, that kid's only 13? And everybody's like, did you know he was 13? And then people that knew me were like, yeah, we knew he was 13, and we also know something else that he shouldn't have done the night before. Needless to say, if something doesn't fit you, don't wear it. Because I almost got sick at that Cali Road tournament because of that. Because I was wearing somebody else's clothes by accident because obviously our luggage got switched. But the moral of the story is I went from being a kid that was absolutely nothing to learning a valuable lesson to actually being able to almost win a round against a gold medalist. But the fact of the matter is he realized what he was doing wasn't working when he looked at the scoreboard, and he thought the points were reversed, but it was actually in my favor, not his. It was kind of interesting because he did a gator roll, and whatever kicked in my body, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to let this guy roll me. Pushed my hands up on the ground like that. He started rolling me. I started walking on my hands whatever direction he was rolling me. My butt didn't touch the ground, and I'm staring at him, and he's rolling himself all over, and I'm going, I don't understand what's happening here, and I'm looking at the scoreboard every time going like this as I'm rolling. And then I see it keep going up, and I'm like, I'm not going to say anything against that. He stopped just as soon as it was like 2 points away from him losing, and then he actually ended up pinning me shortly afterwards because I had a habit of never finishing what I started. Because obviously I was stupid at the point in time. Whenever you're wrestling, the main thing you want to do is actually be the aggressor. I was constantly more focused on the defensive factor, which is kind of what my life has really been like in the past. I never actually thought of getting up and then doing something about it until now, obviously. Because I've always been the more defensive person. If somebody hits me, generally, I just build up that anger. I don't really do a whole lot towards it, but I more or less just turn it into a learning point, if you know what I mean. Because I was bullied a lot as a kid, so I had a lot of bent up anger and frustration. I've never let that out, but overall, it's just one of the things where I'm like, you know what, there's a time and a place for everything, but getting angry right now about something so small isn't really worth it. So whenever I get the chance to actually rise to the occasion, I try to do my best to do that because, you know, you may not be hailed as a hero, that sort of thing. I've done things in the past where I could have been hailed as a hero, but I don't really want to do that. And if my friend does something stupid, I always remind him, remember, I didn't save you for that stupid reason, you know? I mean, that's kind of ignorant, to be honest, but overall it's saying, don't waste what I did for you. Don't let it go to waste. Because I don't want to see that happen to you there. So I don't want to have it happen now, and you waste what you haven't even finished. You've already started your life. You can't let it finish right here. Write your own narrative is what I'm saying. Whenever you're down, get back up on that horse. Write it again. Do it one more time. If that doesn't work, change your strategy. That's where the looking back comes in. Looking back at my life has been nothing but errors and mistake after mistake after mistake. But you know, I'm bound and determined one day it's not really going to be an issue anymore. Now, really will it? Because you think about it. Now, your life sucks. But one day, there's actually going to be a point in your life where you're going to say, hey, look, I came from this. I did this. Everything went wrong. The chips were against me. But look at me now. Sort of deal. So, anyways, I want to thank you guys for actually listening to this. Hit the like button if you thought this was a great story. Hit the dislike button if you actually want to hear more of the... Actually, no, I got that reversed. Hit the like button if you want to hear more of the good moral stories. Hit the dislike button if you liked this video and you don't want me to do any more of these kind of things. And then leave a comment down below. Was this a good story? Was it a bad story? Do you want to hear more of my wrestling stories? Because God knows I have a lot of them that I can actually go through. Because there's so many lessons that I've learned between now and then. It's not even funny. And as always, I hope you're having a fantastic 2018. And if you're not, I hope it gets better for you sooner rather than later. Peace out, and I will see you all in the next video, which coincidentally will be Sunday.